What is up, guys? We are back for a recap of UFC Brooklyn TJ Dillashaw versus Henry Cejudo, which was the first UFC card on ESPN. The deal with Fox came to an end, and ESPN picked up the TV rights, and we had our first event last night, champion versus champion. TJ Dillashaw moving down from 135 to face the 125-pound flyweight champion, Henry Cejudo. And we'll get to that fight a little later because there was a lot of storyline involved in this card. They really did it big for a fight night. I think they did it right on the first ESPN card. But like I said, a lot of storyline to get into. The first thing I kind of wanted to bring up was Dennis Bermudez moving back to 155. He had talked a little bit about retirement, but I didn't see him retiring after a performance like that. He defeated T. Edwards by unanimous decision. He dominated the fight with his wrestling and top pressure. I thought he was going to get Edwards out of there in round two. He had him in a really tight Kimura from, I think he was in half guard and then even inside control, but T. Edwards defended well and got out. But, Dennis Bermudez retired at the end of it, which is a big deal. He had mentioned something about, I think, his uncle battling cancer, so he's going to be more involved with that, and I can relate. So congratulations to Dennis Bermudez on an awesome career in mixed martial arts. Then we moved on to let's talk a little bit about Cowboy Cerrone versus Alexander the Great. I'll preface this by saying all of my picks were incorrect. I predicted 3 fights: the Cowboy fight, the Paige Van Zandt, Rachel Ostovich fight, and the main event, the championship fight. And I am 0-3, and Bobby is 3-0. So we'll give Bobby 0-1 right now. He'll be 0-1, and he'll be 1-0, and I'm 0-1 for fight picks. But nonetheless, Cowboy defeats the young and hungry Alexander Hernandez, who I thought was just going to go in there and bully Cowboy Cerrone, push him around. I thought his pace would be too much, but boy, what was I thinking, because Cowboy showed up, and Cowboy kind of did Cowboy things yesterday. I mean, it was really highlight Cowboy fashion. You saw Hernandez pressuring Cowboy, and Cowboy got hit a few times early. And but the difference to me was when Cowboy would hit Hernandez, you would see this look on Hernandez of not confusion, but just like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to deal with this. Not only him hitting me, the pressure, the physicality of it, but mentally, because he's a younger fighter. He'd only had 2 fights in the UFC. So mentally, he has to deal with, getting hit, getting stung, and hitting Cowboy, but Cowboy still being in the fight. That psychologically can be really tough for a young fighter. And, that's kind of what we saw. We saw, Hernandez pressure Cowboy, but Cowboy's experience, he dealt with that pressure. And the difference to me was at the end of combinations, you saw Cowboy just kind of deal with it a lot better than Alexander Hernandez did when he would get dotted up. And very, very shortly into the fight, Cowboy cut Hernandez, and it was just the beginning of the end for Hernandez. Cowboy looked beautiful. Sometimes I don't like the way Cowboy carries his head when he's being pressured, but what can you say to that when he wins by TKO round 2? Just a beat down, a real not necessarily a striking clinic, but a good display of how to put your punches together and extend those combinations longer than maybe initially what you thought the combination would be as you started the combination, but now just flowing that into other combinations, because Cowboy can put together some nasty combinations that you've probably never even seen before, and we know that about Cowboy. So Cowboy wants to make a run at the lightweight title, and a win like that is he'll have a number by his name. I think Hernandez was ranked 10, so he should be up there with he should be up in the top 10 at least. He should take Hernandez's spot. Let me pull up this card here. Saved it for you guys. I had some results here. Because then we moved on to the main fight, which was on ESPN Plus. Though Bermudez and Cowboy, those two fights were on the prelims. Cowboy was the headliner of the prelims. But we moved into the main card, which was an awesome card. It really lived up to it. We'll start by talking about Glover Teixeira and Carl Robertson. Glover got hit with some nasty elbows. It was kind of that Travis Brown-esque position where Glover shot in and was in on his hips against the fence, but what it did is it created a position where Glover's head was on the side of Carl's body, where Carl could rain down these nasty elbows, and that's what he started to do. And you saw Glover drop to a knee and go limp and not pull guard, but roll to his back. And Carl Roberts went in on top of him. And a couple of those elbows, I thought, man, are those close to the back of the head? He had a couple marks up at the top of his head, but the ref didn't say anything. He didn't break the action, and Glover survives the elbows. Manages, I forget which, if it was a break in the round, if he survives the round. No, round one. So Glover survives the elbows, comes back, ends up on top, just kind of showing his experience, hanging in there. And I think when he got on top of Carl, and Carl saw that, Glover's not only still in the fight, but he's attacking and pushing the finish as well, trying to lock in some arm triangles. It kind of just broke the will of Carl Robertson's a little bit. And Glover secures a tight arm triangle and submits him in round one, which was really awesome to see. I don't know what's next for Glover, but he could just keep fighting, try to move up the ranks. And then we get into my second prediction, which was Paige Van Zandt versus Rachel Ostovich. A lot of story revolving that fight too. We have Ostovich, who's just coming back from a domestic abuse incident, which was very publicized. And Paige Van Zandt in her book talks about some sexual abuse in her past. So that's a good storyline there. Two strong women who have overcome adversity in their personal lives, fighting each other to advance in the women's featherweight division. Not featherweight, I'm sorry. The women's flyweight division, 125. So it started off really good. I predicted Ostovich winning by decision because of her wrestling, I think. I think that's what I predicted yesterday. And it started off kind of like that. Rachel Ostovich looked really good. Secured a couple takedowns. Was doing decent in the scrambles. But when round two started, it kind of started the same. Ostovich landed a nasty punch, overhand right to a takedown. But the scrambling and the experience of Paige Van Zandt was just too much. You saw during the scrambles, Ostovich tried to just secure position, and Paige Van Zandt was constantly moving, constantly didn't let her secure the position, and eventually took her back and was sliding off of her back but secured an arm, and it didn't look like the armbar was really tight, but just the way the angle was on Rachel Ostovich's arm, Paige Van Zandt's hips, and most of her body weight was right on that elbow joint, and I don't know if she injured her, but she tapped pretty quickly and was favoring that arm after the fight. So, big ups to Rachel. She fought great, and hope she recovers quickly and we see her back soon. That was another one I got wrong. Bobby predicted Paige Van Zandt winning. So Bobby took that one as well. We talked about Benavidez winning a unanimous decision. There's a lot of big shots thrown in that fight. Then we moved to Gregor Gillespie, which is a tough wrestler. Fighting Yancy Medeiros, who's a fan favorite. Everybody kind of likes watching Medeiros fight. He's an exciting fighter. It was just kind of the story of wrestling in that fight to me. Gregor Gillespie's top pressure was just too much for Yancy Medeiros, and Yancy had his moments, but it really was the story of Gregor Gillespie just working in the clinch and kind of just stifling any offense that Medeiros tried to produce. And then Gillespie just working on top, unloading a lot of heavy ground and pound, a lot of elbows. And the referee actually stopped the fight with 1 second remaining on the clock in round 2, which, if it went to round 3, it just kind of would have been the same as the story of the rest of the fight. I think we're going to see a lot from Gregor Gillespie. He kind of broke into the scene with his last fight, but I think we're going to see a lot more of him, so be on the lookout for Gregor Gillespie if you're in the 155-pound division. We saw a couple fighters go back down to the 155-pound division who had fought at 170, most notably Cowboy, but he looked great, and Medeiros. But the thing I noticed about Medeiros was at 155, he looked physically better than at 170. He carries a little bit of body fat at 170, typically around his waist. And I don't know if that's detrimental or not. It can go both ways. I typically like to see the guys fight at a more natural weight class, but Medeiros physically looked awesome. And it really, to me, it didn't have anything to do with the weight. It was a Gregor Gillespie show. So, exciting fights. Greg Hardy, the co-main event. I don't even want to talk about that. Pretty Boy wins by disqualification. Greg Hardy threw some illegal knees. I don't know why he was the co-main event. This guy, who the fuck cares about Greg Hardy? I think we're all better than our worst day. We all need a chance for rehabilitation, but this guy should have been fighting on the very first, the Fight Pass cards. Not even on the prelims. He should have been the first or second fight. Pretty Boys only had one fight in the UFC. I don't know why they highlighted them as the co-main event. Really just for the story, the domestic abuse stuff. Greg Hardy has a decent name because of the NFL, but, dude, I watch the NFL. I love the NFL. I've heard his name, but it came and went. Greg Hardy's... I don't know what to say about that issue, but not a great fight. Any fight that ends in controversy typically isn't the best fight. There's exceptions to that rule, like for instance Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, but this was not that type of fight. So nonetheless, Pretty Boy wins by disqualification. But that's all we really need to say about that. Now to the main event, which this is the one I want to talk about a little bit. We had TJ Dillashaw moving down to the flyweight division to face the 125-pound champion Henry Cejudo. And TJ Dillashaw had to drop an extra 10 pounds to make that weight. And I had said in my first prediction, I had said in yesterday's prediction that I was concerned by the way TJ looked. He may have cut the weight and he may have made weight easily, but that doesn't take away from the deficiency that cutting that weight puts on his body. I was worried about his cardio. We didn't get to see that in this fight because of how short the fight was, but what we did get to see is another factor of cardio, which is your recovery. When you get clipped and hit, your cardio, it plays a big factor on how quickly you can recover. And when you're depleting your body that much, that extreme, because let's remember, TJ's not a big guy, but the cut to 135, he is completely shredded. So at 125, he had to lose a lot of that muscle, and he just looked, it looked wrong. It looked wrong even from a weight cutting perspective. It was reminiscent of the Conor McGregor days at 145. So I was super concerned. And when you cut that much weight, there's, excuse me if I'm not completely scientific about this whole description, but there's fluid that surrounds your organs and your brain. And when you cut weight that much, your body needs to use some of that fluid, so you have less around your brain. And when you get hit, it's harder to recover. Forget the biology and the science of it. When you get hit, to regain your bearings, it's difficult to do, especially when your body's depleted. And we've seen TJ Dillashaw get clipped and hurt bad in a fight, most notably the Cody Garbrandt, and recover and come back to win. And in this fight, TJ just looked tired. He looked weathered. It was short, so I can't really say that with confidence that he looked tired. But he didn't seem to recover as much, and it was a little bit of a quick stoppage, but Henry Cejudo, take nothing away from him. He went in there, and he TKO'd TJ Dillashaw. I had predicted TJ Dillashaw TKO round 2 with a head kick involved. It's basically the exact opposite, except much earlier in the fight. Bobby predicted that one as well. He went with the Olympian, Henry, and, I just wonder if TJ underestimated him. In the post-fight conference, TJ was just kind of harping on an early stoppage, champion versus champion, and I agree. I'd have to watch the fight a little bit more, but I wonder if not stopping the fight would have just prolonged the beating. I don't know if he was going to secure that single leg. All in all, I have to say congratulations to Henry Cejudo, man. It was Henry at his natural weight, and I think that was the difference. I still think TJ Dillashaw technically is a better fighter. He has more tools to win. But Henry just went out and did what Henry needed to do. He didn't allow TJ's movement to become a factor. Really nothing became a factor in that fight because it ended so quickly. I will be surprised to see what they do next. If TJ wants a rematch at 125, but I would like to see it at 135. We saw what happened at 125. And, I don't think it'd go much different. That's hard to say because we didn't see a lot in the fight. So I'm just going to leave it as, congratulations to Henry Cejudo. It seemed like he was fresher. It was him at his natural weight class. I don't know if the weight cut knocked on TJ's confidence. It didn't seem like that at the weigh-ins and things like that. So I'm just going to go with it was Henry at his natural weight. Henry showed up, and he was the better fighter. So I am 0-1 with my predictions for the new year. Bobby took house on that one. So we had the 3 main fights. Cowboy, let's see what Cowboy does in the future. I think there'll be some big fights for him. Paige Van Zandt, she's back from the arm injury, back from surgery, wins via stoppage. There's going to be more for her soon, too. We're going to see her start to try to climb those rankings again. The Gregor Gillespie show, man, putting pressure. We're going to see more from him. And Henry Cejudo silences all the doubters and saves the division, defeating TJ Dillashaw round 1 TKO. So that's my recap, man. I was off on all my predictions, so you know, I don't know. I did my homework, but sometimes it goes like that, guys. Hey, I really appreciate you guys checking out the recap with us. I'll be on tomorrow because I still got to break down the championship games today. We have the AFC Championship, Kansas City versus New England, and this evening we have the NFC Championship, Los Angeles versus New Orleans. So big weekend of sports. We'll be back tomorrow, guys. Appreciate it.